I'm worried about elections, period, in our country. I think we're seeing a conscious effort to both overtake bodies that are supposed to be nonpartisan.
Hi, Janessa.
Hi, Jana. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you so much for your time. A pleasure to talk to you.
Of
And
course.
I really enjoy watching War Game. It was one an amazing. I love everything that Jesse does. I talked to him a couple of times about his documentaries, and and Tony also is an amazing filmmaker. So I know that voice was came up with the idea with doing this simulation. What was like, why did you think right now is the perfect time to have that simulation and to do a documentary about it?
Yeah, well, we originally, the idea came from some of our senior advisors. So, Vet Voice Foundation is a national veterans organization led by veterans. I myself am a Marine Corps veteran, and we have a lot of folks who are retired and have served anywhere from 4 years to 34 years in uniform. And after January 6th, a number of general officers in our advisory network expressed a really deep concern about how many veterans participated in the insurrection on January 6th. A disproportionate number, 1 in 5 of people who were tried for their role were veterans. And so they wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post that called on the administration to really take a hard look at extremist recruitment in the military. And one of their recommendations was to do a war game to examine what might happen if there was another contested election in this country, but this time a losing candidate called on extremists in the military to help them take power. And we decided to take that challenge on and do that war game ourselves. So that was the impetus for the project.
That's amazing. And how did it come Jesse and Tony came on board? Why did you pick them, or because they are
Yeah, no, it was
amazing,
a
I know,
really
but
sometimes just the right people, the right places, the right connections. A member of my team went to school, like elementary school, with Warren Littlefield's creative partner, Jonathan Steinberg. And we knew we wanted to do some sort of public facing element to this war game, which is kind of unusual. Usually do something like this, you write a report, you provide it to the government or whatever agency you're seeking to influence. But we felt that this problem was needed public attention and needed some degree of public accountability. So we wanted to do a documentary. We didn't really know how to do it. We're a nonprofit. We're not from Hollywood or New York. We're based out of DC. And so I started talking to my communications director, Eric Schmelzer, about it. And he talked to his old friend. And Jonathan actually brought it and put it in, was speaking with Warren about it, and Warren said, "I need to know more." And so once Warren got involved, he brought on Jesse and Tony, which we were so out of our depth. Like again, we're not used to working with such creative geniuses and people who are award-winning producers and documentarians. So we really hit the jackpot, and not only just in terms of their talent and skills and vision, but we had a very unusual dynamic in the sense that Vet Voice was producing the game, Jesse and Tony were producing the film, and we were sort of doing everything at the same time in tandem. So it took a lot of trust because they had complete narrative control, and we really didn't know what the players were going to do over the course of the day. And it took a lot of sort of being able to build the bicycle while riding it. The whole project came together in less than 6 months, and we shot the whole film over the course of just one day.
yeah, they mentioned that was a little challenge for them because they are no actors.
Right.
And when you're doing that, like, well, like, you never know what's gonna happen, if it's gonna happen, you know what I mean? Like the way that they want. So how did you select the participants? Because was the Vet Voice that selected the ones? How was like the approach? How did you pick them?
Yeah, well, it was very important to us that the role players were people who had either held that position in the past or had held a very proximate position to it. We wanted folks to be reacting and responding the way the actual government or military really would, so that we could learn from that and learn what some of the weaknesses are, what are some assumptions we have that need to be tested or strengthened. And it was also very important to us that we had a bipartisan cast of characters, that it wasn't all from one party or the other, because this problem isn't a partisan problem. It is truly ingrained throughout our society. Although I will say that the far right is responsible for most of the political violence and rhetoric, escalation of rhetoric that we see today. So it was very important to us to have that representation. And you'll see folks from the last 5 presidential administrations, even folks who worked within the Trump administration for some time, as well as people who are adamantly nonpartisan, like General Jeff Buchanan, who participated, who served in uniform for decades, and really sees this issue as a threat to our democracy, and not as a right or left issue.
Yeah, that's really cool. Also, like you're there. What was like for you, like participating on the documentary, and what was like your biggest challenge? Because you also helped create this. You also kind of become a producer. So what was like
Yeah,
your
yeah.
biggest challenge there?
Definitely didn't expect to add that role to my resume, but here we are. For me, I described it as like being the producer, or being like a coach of both teams at the Super Bowl, and also producing the Super Bowl television broadcast at the same time. We had so many different things that were going exactly as planned, and a dozen things or more that didn't go as planned, from things the players chose to do that we hadn't planned for. Like at one point, you see me like jump in and role play a character we hadn't thought to cast. To technical difficulties, with some of the things that we were trying to make happen in this incredibly complex, multiple set situation that we had built up. So for me, the challenge was just trying to make sure that the pace of the game was continuing, that we were hitting all of the game injects and the learning points that we wanted to hit and stress test, while also making sure that everybody was like, had what they needed and were fed and had a water break, and then we have our producers making sure the crew has their union breaks. There was 55 people on set that day and 7 different cameras. So it was a big logistical operation, but something that certainly my military experience prepared me for.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So I think you already answered this question, but are you worried about this next election?
I'm worried about elections, period, in our country. I think we're seeing a conscious effort to both overtake bodies that are supposed to be nonpartisan, whether those are, elections boards or county clerks or recorders, to efforts to undermine election results in the courts. And our organization is actually in a number of legal fights right now, with folks who are trying to either change the rules of the election right before the election, or are saying that certain people can't vote. And we believe, as veterans who put on a uniform and served and swore an oath to the Constitution, that voting is a fundamental right. Everybody who has the right to vote should be able to exercise it in this country. And when they do, the validity of that election, although we should always work to ensure there isn't voter fraud, of course, the validity of that should be accepted. And I'm really concerned because a lot of the people who have in the past election, when the President Trump said the election was stolen, a lot of people stood up to him and said, actually, no, I administered this election. These results are valid. A lot of those people have lost their seats in recent years, as recently as just yesterday, the former clerk of Maricopa County. And so I'm concerned about the future. But I think if people get involved, if they volunteer as poll workers, if they take an active role in our democracy, then I have a lot of hope.
Yeah, what amazed me about the elections here is because everything's made on paper. I'm from Brazil and we have electronic, everything's electronic. I know they can play with the numbers in the electronic as well as the paper, but I think it's like sometimes takes so long to know, and the results, I think it's crazy.
Well, and there are, I do think that's a really good point. And there are groups out there that are working to introduce new technology into our voting system so that those votes can be counted faster. And it really does inspire confidence when people understand how their votes are tallied and counted. So there are some really great groups out there that are doing that work. But at the end of the day, the instances of voter fraud in this country are so low. And the ability to rig an election is actually very much prevented by the fact that each county administers elections across this country. You don't have some centralized system. So imagine trying to get all your relatives in your family to do one logistically challenging thing. Now multiply that by 10,000, or however many counties we have in this country, probably a lot more than that. So it gives me hope that people are paying attention to that, but I am concerned about forces that are actively seeking to undermine democracy and its value.
Yeah, the documentary is very relevant. A month ago in January, it went premiere, and it's gonna be relevant for the years to come, I would say, because
Yeah,
it's
I agree.
very, very important. What else do you think people are gonna learn with your documentary?
Well, we've screened at a number of festivals across the country so far, and so I've had the opportunity to kind of see how people react after the film. It is, it's been called one of the scariest movie of the year. I think RogerEbert.com just called it that today. But it also has a lot of hope in it, and I think that people are dealing with this issue in their own lives. Many people approach me after the film and share that they have a family member who is, subscribing to conspiracy theories or extremist ideology, and they don't really know how to deal with it. And it's kind of been this thing that we've talked about it in the context of national politics, but not necessarily in the context of how it's impacting families. And so I hope that the film can help inspire conversation. In the film, you'll hear me talk about my dad, who subscribes to a lot of conspiracy theories. He and I actually watched the film together a few weeks ago for the first time, and he really enjoyed it. He thought it really brought out a lot of interesting ideas and topics. So I hope that it can serve as that sort of conversation starter and help bridge some divides.
Yeah, I hope so too. And also, I hope people don't, I don't know, social media is it's right there and it's very dangerous. And oh my God. Anyway, so Janice, I just want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your service. And I hope everybody liked the documentary like I did. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jana. I appreciate you.
Of course, appreciate you too. Thank you. Love you.
If you like to continue to support Jana on Camera, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share the videos.